Hello family and friends. As you know, there is an election coming up, and as a chronically online politics fan, this is my Super Bowl. So I'm making this video as a buyer's guide for those who've been too busy to keep up with the current candidates and their policies.
So you can decide which choice is best for you, and you'll know what you're voting for. I'm just here to inform you, so argue with your mama, not me.
Also, I'll drop some timestamps if you're looking for a specific topic. Also, I'll be dropping...
I'll drop in some timestamps in case you're looking for something specific. With that being said, let's get into the top 5 biggest topics of the 2024 election season. Alright, so let's start off with the most popular topic.
Kamala Harris's economic plan includes tax breaks for middle-class families, cracking down on grocery store prices, addressing the housing crisis. Donald Trump's economic plan includes raising tariffs on imported goods to pay off our national debt, and deporting immigrants. Both candidates have proposed a child tax credit. J.D. Vance has proposed $5,000 per child. The Harris administration has proposed $3,600 per child, but if they're a newborn, it's increased to $6,000 per child. So if you're a parent, you win either way. Both administrations also want to end income taxes on tips, so if you're in the service industry like a lot of my family, it's another win for you guys, either way.
Now let's get into the details for both. Starting with Harris. Her tax breaks for the middle class include rolling back the 2017 Trump-era Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. She plans to raise the corporate tax rate to 28 to alleviate the tax burden from the working-class individual who have suffered higher taxes from the 2017 Trump-era tax plan. However, it is important to note, the 28% proposed still pales in comparison to the pre-Trump corporate tax rate of 35% in place during the Obama administration. On the flip side, while Trump has not currently released a fully detailed tax plan, based off his interviews and appearances, he said that he will further increase tax cuts upon election, lowering the corporate tax rate from 21% to 20%, which is a lot of money when we're talking in trillions. In exchange for corporations' share of taxes, Trump wants to impose tariffs on all foreign goods, and especially from China, with a 60% tariff. Now for groceries, Kamala is looking to use the FTC to prevent food companies from merging. Less competition means higher prices. She's also mentioned preventing grocery stores from price gouging, which is significant. According to the FTC, large grocery store chains exploited product shortages during the pandemic by raising prices significantly more than needed to cover the added costs. They also continued to reap excessive profits. And finally, Harris plans to subsidize first-time home buyers with a $25,000 incentive. She also claims she wants to work with the private sector and home builders to increase by 3 million homes by the end of the first term. On Trump's side of things, he's promised to reduce regulations and open swaths of federal land for large-scale housing construction. Regulations cost 30% of a new home, and we will open up portions of federal land for large-scale housing construction, he said. These zones will be ultra-low tax and ultra-low regulations, one of the great small business job creation programs. Now, let's determine who's helping who. For the working-class crowd, first-time homebuyers and those expecting a newborn. If you're not pulling in over $200,000 a year from your executive-level salary and investment portfolio, Harris has the edge, due to her economic plan offsetting the tax burden from lower to middle-income families and targeting the expensive necessities. For the $200,000 a year and over crowd, business owners, top-level white-collar employees, and trust fund babies, the edge goes to Trump. His track record historically favors wealthy Americans. Just look at his tax plan. A 2024 study of the impact of the TCJA found that the TCJA clearly raised federal debt and increased after-tax incomes, disproportionately increasing incomes for the most affluent. Its effects on GDP and median wages seem modest at best. Another 2024 study, which analyzed the corporate tax cut in the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which was the biggest in U.S. history, found that the tax cut reduced corporate tax revenue by 40% and increased corporate investment by 11%, but that it increased economic growth and wages by less than advertised. So apparently, it didn't trickle down. This will undoubtedly be his stance again. However, something to be aware of is his heavily criticized tariff plan, which has been ineffective in reducing the deficit. The cost of these tariffs will likely be passed on to the consumer, as we saw during his administration. Here's some information about tariffs for the uninitiated. Tariffs are taxes imposed on imported goods, often resulting in higher prices for consumers. They can impact various demographics, particularly burdening lower-income consumers, and posing challenges for small businesses reliant on imported materials. Tariffs were a considerable aspect when analyzing the historical impact of Donald Trump's presidency. That's not to say that Harris's plan isn't without criticism. Many have responded negatively to her desire for taxing unrealized gains for those making over $100 million.
I just don't think I know anyone who has over $100 million, but if I'm wrong, let me know.
I need a new bicycle.
Now on to immigration. Both candidates are functionally the same, unless for some reason one of them suddenly feels like building an Ellis Island 2.0 at the southern border, but I don't see that happening. So until then, coyotes are going to keep taking advantage of immigrants, and people are going to suffer down there, and they're just going to sit back and watch, sadly. But this category is mostly a moot point, but the only real difference being that Trump's policy aims a bit more at aggressive deportation. And he does a little bit of racism on the side, too, but that's neither here nor there.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets. I think the real number is 15, 16 million people into our country. When they do that, we got a lot of work to do. They're poisoning the blood of our country, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about.
This is a quote. Why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here? He apparently suggested he prefer immigrants from places like Norway.
A group from Venezuela, rough ones. They took over large sections of the town of Colorado. Has anyone been there? I think you'd better stay away for a little while.
Prisons. They let everybody out of their prisons to come here.
We feel that it's important to sidebar here and note that Maduro did not open Venezuelan prisons or deliberately send criminals north to America as a way to punish us for the sanctions, which is how it's being reported by the mainstream conservative press.
They're coming from prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums like Silence of the Lamb.
But let's compare their stances. On the Harris side, she now says she wants to sign into law the tough border compromise that Congress was unable to pass in 2024 after Donald Trump objected to it. That bill would have closed loopholes in the asylum process, given the president greater authority to shut down the border when crossings are high, and limited parole of migrants. At the Democratic National Convention in August, she reiterated, "We can create an earned pathway to citizenship and secure our border," Harris said at the DNC. "I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law." She has repeatedly called the current immigration system broken and called for reform. She's not provided more details on the shape of it yet, though. Here's Trump's stance. Trump stated in September 2023, he intends to implement the largest mass deportation of undocumented immigrants in American history, referencing a 1950s operation to deport undocumented immigrants under President Eisenhower, known as Operation No. In his 2024 campaign, Trump has promised mass deportations in his second term and has indicated that he could deploy the military as part of the effort. While I personally give them both a big thumbs down, I'll make it simple for the rest of you. If you're seeking a sort of military-style roundup and mass deportation of immigrants, that'll be Trump. With Harris, you'll likely receive the contents of the border bill that was killed by Republicans in February, which is, it included money to build more border barriers, to greatly expand detention facilities, and hire more immigration and customs enforcement and border patrol agents, asylum officers, and immigration judges to reduce the year-long backlog of cases to determine asylum eligibility. Now let's move on to healthcare.
Moving on to healthcare, Trump is looking to make good on his promise from 2016 with repealing Obamacare and replacing it with something better. But we do not know what that is, so we're just going to go based off of his claims. He says, quote, "We are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace Obamacare." Though he admitted that until they found a better alternative, his administration would run the marketplace as good as it can be run. So there you go. On the Harris side of things, she's looking to expand Obamacare. Her policies include, she has proposed an out-of-pocket cap on drug costs of $2,000 per year, regardless of income or coverage, as well as a maximum of $35 per month insulin copay. She would also continue the Medicare drug cost negotiations that began earlier this year. So basically, Harris's plan is to expand on Obamacare and bring prices down for drug costs, and that's pretty much it. So next up, we've got reproductive health care. I made it its own separate thing because I know it's very important to many people.
Trump has recently promised to require insurance carriers to cover IVF treatments. The candidate has also recently softened his stance on abortion, even claiming at one point that he'd be in favor of voting for increased abortion protections in his home state of Florida. In September's debate as well, Trump clearly stated he believes in exceptions for the life of the mother. "I strongly believe in it," bragging about his administration's success in making abortion a states' rights issue. "I'm not signing a ban," Trump said later in the debate. He believes it should be left up to each state government to decide on women's reproductive rights, whereas Harris is urging Congress to codify abortion rights into national law. Her stance is the restoration of Roe v. Wade, which protects abortion up to the time of fetal viability at 22 weeks. We're going to split this category in half. So in terms of general health care, the edge goes to Harris because at this time, Trump just doesn't have a policy to compare against. So that's pretty easy. As for reproductive rights, pretty obvious. Harris for the pro-choice crowd and Trump for the anti-abortion crowd.
And finally, foreign policy. Trump has trended towards isolationism. He doesn't want us involved in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Given his statements and friendship with Putin, it's safe to assume that Trump would abandon the Ukraine conflict. Harris has pledged to stand strong with Ukraine and our NATO allies. However, both candidates have expressed strong support for Israel despite the war crimes. So sadly, that is not a factor in this category, so we're just going to move on to your voting options. However, this is just a little disclaimer because I see this a lot online. Before I give you the results, I just want to educate you all on a common misconception that is found on the internet. Many Americans are under the impression that we are just gifting Ukraine like fat stacks of cash. That is not the case, okay? We are utilizing a policy created during World War II. It is known as Lend-Lease, okay? The Lend-Lease Act was created during World War II so that way we could provide money to the allies like the people in Britain and France, etc. And we are doing that in Ukraine, meaning that we are lending Ukraine money and weapons to fight this war. And if the Ukrainians win, then we will expect to see a return on investment kind of like what we got from World War II. And what did we get from World War II? We got post-war repayments, technological advancements, improved global trade, and political influence. Okay, so let's just keep that in mind. So, with that in mind, in the foreign policy section, the edge goes to Harris because if Trump allows Russia to steamroll Ukraine, not only will more innocent people die, we will also see zero return on investment from our Ukraine allies because at this point, we're in too deep. We've paid a lot of money to them. However, if for some reason you are pro-Russia, then Trump's your guy. He's just going to pull out of Ukraine.
And that covers the top 5 issues this election season. If you're interested in hearing about who I'm going to vote for, then you're welcome to stick around. Otherwise, you could go about your day. Have a blessed one. Mwah, I kiss you on your forehead. Well, guys, that was a lot of fun. But if you're not happy with either candidate, I completely understand. That's because our government doesn't serve your interests. Neither of these presidential candidates, your senators, your congressmen, every branch of the government does not represent you. Let me say that again.
The two candidates who are running in the race right now, your congressmen, your senators, every branch of government does not represent you, at least not fully.
Until we as a nation begin pressuring our lawmakers to abolish corporate lobbying, our candidates will only serve the corporations who line their pockets. Their policies will always be half measures and focused on maintaining a high quality of life for the rich people and a barely passable one for the average hardworking American family. So that's why it's important for you and me to support anyone who steps up to the plate and commits to passing anti-corruption laws to fix our government. A U.S. senator or congressman makes almost $200,000 a year, but to them, it's still not enough. They'd rather sell out their countrymen. I know many of you don't care about politics because of this corruption. You don't believe that we can make things better. And I understand. Some days, I feel like it's pointless. But call it childish optimism. Despite the horrible things that we see every single day, I truly believe, with all of my heart, that there are more kind people in this world than there are cruel ones. More than that, I believe there are more people in this world trying to be better human beings. And for the sake of those people, we can't give up. But we cannot win if we do not play the game. So let's play the game. It's up to people like you and me to move the needle. Join a union. If you don't have one, make one. Support the various anti-corruption aligned organizations and vote out anyone who threatens your labor rights, Republican or Democrat. Also, find the most ethically upstanding person you know who wouldn't want or need a meager salary of $174,000 and campaign for them like your life depends on it. If we all do our part, then maybe, just maybe, we can get to a point where our government actually serves our interests. And maybe we can make the American dream more attainable for everyone again. Though that's a day far off from now, right now we've got to focus on who's the best pick for today. Which in my opinion, for someone in my circumstances, it's Harris. I've never made over $50,000. I'm a working class man, newly married man, hoping to raise a family in the near future and buy a house. The changes she's looking to implement will make it easier for me to get a home and will slightly improve my life. And lastly, I find Trump's denial of the previous election results concerning. In multiple courts with Republican judges, they couldn't find a lick of evidence for his claims, but it doesn't stop him from saying it. And to me, that is an indictment of his character. A few nights ago, I watched a documentary on HBO. It's called Stop the Steal. It digs into the details of the 2020 election and the bravery it took for the people running the election to not fold under incredible pressure. It's honestly one of the craziest pieces of media I've seen in years. I cannot recommend it enough. Please go watch it. But even if you don't watch it, let me ask you something. If someone is willing to lie and do whatever it takes to maintain power, should that not concern you? Don't you think it's strange that someone would blatantly disregard physically verifiable data? If the answer is no, then I'm praying for you. But frankly, that's terrifying, man. Anyway, though, I can't tell you how to live your life, so just do whatever's best for you and the people you love, and I'll see you in another 4 years. Thanks for watching. Have a blessed day.